Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back from our 2-week hiatus. Where have you been, everybody? We've been waiting for you. So, Presbytera, we're back.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we had 2 weeks off. 1 week was we had to let Demos out of the cage. You know, every once in a while, you got to let the monkey out of the cage. But you know, well, we don't want to call him a monkey, but you know.
Yeah. I didn't go swinging.
All right, but you enjoyed? I think you went to a concert, so I think you enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, one of my friends got us tickets for Peter Gabriel in Boston, and that was it was a great show. He's very theatrical. And he has I guess his first album in 20 years just got released, and I thought that a lot of the music was pretty good. And, of course, everybody stood and cheered when Sledgehammer came.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
And then after that, went up into New England for a little bit. Got some New England cheddar cheese from Vermont and stuff. Saw some alpacas. It was great. It was a much-needed break. Saw some good friends.
Good. And so you and UNC had a nice time then, right?
We had a great time.
So the second week, we were gone at the metropolis level clergy laity. For those of you that may not know what that is, on off years, so we'll have a metropolis clergy laity, or what you would think of as a diocesan clergy laity, and then we'll have an archdiocese clergy laity, and they just happen on revolving years, so that there's one every year. Next year will be the archdiocese clergy laity, and I think that's in San Diego. I heard, right?
That's what I heard. Yeah,
we're going to California, but this time we were in Detroit. We went to the metropolis level, the diocese level 1, and the function of a clergy laity is several different things. Number one, it's a chance for clergy brotherhood to get together and just, how you been, what you've been doing, because, again, sometimes where we are, we don't get to see other brother clergy. So the clergy laity is a chance for the clergy brotherhood to get together. But equally so, the laity is usually the senior members, the executive members of the parish council. And so the presidents, the secretaries, the vice presidents, the treasurers will all go and they'll kind of communicate with one another. Hey, what are you guys doing and how do you solve this problem? And so there's a good communion, if I could say, there between them.
And we get to see parishioners from past parishes we were at.
Yeah, in fact, we saw parishioners from Annunciation of Kalamazoo, and then
we did.
Right, we saw her, and then also we got to see several of our parishioners from Flint. So we sat down with them, had a few drinks. That was really nice. So that's another thing that the clergy laity accomplishes. But also, there's voting that takes place. So this is where the matters of the diocese and the archdiocese are decided, right? We're not just deciding clergy, making decisions, but we've got the clergy and the laity, right? We're all the body of Christ. And so we all have to take part in the decisions that move us forward in terms of who we are as Orthodox Christians. So obviously the Archdiocese has all of the parishes in America, where the metropolis or diocese clergy ladies only has the parishes from that particular diocese. So it was fun. We had 6 of us. 6 of us went? 7. No.
Well, it was 5 plus Ken.
5 plus Ken. 5 plus Ken. Ken's kind of an inside joke there, so we'll leave that.
Was Barbie there?
What?
Was Barbie there too?
No, Barbie was at another table. They are separated now, so that's so we're hoping for their reconciliation.
She's out with G.I. Joe now.
She's out with G.I. Joe, exactly. That was a Nissan commercial one time, I thought. Nissan or Toyota did that commercial. So we actually were able to engage in a lot of interesting discussions, not necessarily theological, but certainly in terms of evangelical, in terms of what should we be doing, post-COVID in this with technology. So a lot of the discussion centers around what is the appropriate use of technology and how do we now integrate that in a post-COVID world. So that was one of the discussions that was happening. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun.
It was
and it's also Philoptohos gathers.
Yes.
They always have their there are meetings at the clergy lady.
That's true. Yeah. That's right. So all the Philoptikos members gather, or at least the executive members gather, and then it always ends in a banquet, right? So we had a number of really good speakers this time. Bishop Nicholas is always a very, very good speaker and very energetic and enthusiastic. But we also had a couple of other great speakers. Cyprian Streza, who is the priest of he is the priest in Mackinac.
No, in Traverse City.
Or Traverse City, I'm sorry. He's the priest of Traverse City. He spoke very, very well.
Mm-hmm. Father Theodore always says
Father Theodore speaks very, very well. It's always, his lectures are very, very interesting. So it gives us a chance to see, not every priest is gifted with the ability to speak. They all have different gifts. But
I have to say, it's not a lecture that Father Theodore does. He engages the audience.
Yeah,
he speaks, he asks questions, we get to, whoever's in the audience gets to answer back. So it's not a lecture, it's very much back and forth. Which is much more engaging for the audience. Yeah. So anyway, that was fun, that was educational, and we actually came back with a good book. Not the good book, but a good book. So I'm starting this book now. This was recommended at the Clergy Laity Conference because a lot of times people ask about prayer. How to pray, what's the right way to pray. This is by Bishop Anthony Bloom, who is actually was in the Russian Patriarchate and during the hard times of the war. One of the stories that he relates in here about the cost of discipleship. I'm using Dietrich Bonhoeffer's term there, but one of the stories that he relates in here is, what Jesus says, no greater gift is there for a man to lay down his life. So during the beginnings of the Bolshevik Revolution, they were looking, obviously, for people who were either religious or philosophers, artists, things like that. So this one lady had been a neighbor of this one other lady something happened to her husband, but she had several kids. And so, that's what it was. Her husband was captured by the Bolsheviks. So now they were looking for her, and they were going to exterminate the whole family. So kids too?
The kid. Well, she says. So the neighbor, the neighbor of hers, came to her door and says, "I'm here to tell you that the communists are looking for you, and they've already captured your husband. They're going to kill your husband, and now they're looking for you and your children." And she says, "Well, what do I do?" She says, "You're going to flee, and I'm going to use your name."
Oh.
And gave her the time to escape. And then she stayed in the home and waited, and then they came. She announced who she was under that name, and they killed her. But that was one of the examples he gives in the book of this is the cost of discipleship, and sometimes we forget what the saints have done, for their faith. And this is a story that was very, very recent, right? I mean, within history. So anyway, I'm going to finish this book up, and then I'm going to give you a review of that.
Wow.
All right. Well, just some quick announcements before we start taking questions. In 3 weeks, we're going to have our 150th episode. It doesn't seem that much long ago that we got the plaque for 100.
For 100th, right?
No.
But we're about to hit our 150, and we just surpassed 12,000 subscribers.
Thank you,
Yay.
everybody, for that. That's awesome.
That is
That's
exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, very exciting.
So we've been talking about doing a giveaway. We had a donation for a giveaway, which is on display right there. But I think we'll do it for the 150th and maybe have some other special surprises, including finally finding a way to allow Father to bang his fists on the table without having an issue with the sound.
Oh, right. Okay. Free to bang.
Which shouldn't really be the motto for this show, but nevertheless.
Oh, goodness.
Shall we take some questions?
Yes, let's quickly take some questions.
Yes. And I just want to say we do appreciate everybody watching the show, because we had a concerned viewer call the office this week because we hadn't been on for a few weeks, and she was worried that something had happened. And so
yeah, that's really very nice that that our listeners are so loyal and so dedicated to us. So that's really good. Thank you.
Yes. All righty. I think this is a new one here. The Babbling Man. That's not you, is it?
Could be. Sometimes those questions kind of roll on. But the answers roll on.
So the Babbling Man says, "Hello, I'm learning about Orthodoxy and am interested in converting. My question is, how do I venerate the saints correctly? And when could I call myself an Orthodox Christian? By the way, I come from a Baptist background, if that helps any."
Well, since Presbytera comes from a Baptist background, do you want to start that one off? You've got experience in coming into Orthodoxy. So what is it that you think? And then I'll provide some.
Well, how do I venerate? Do you want me to answer that?
Okay. So let's do that one. So how to properly venerate, and you use the correct term because again, the Protestant Church and unfortunately Orthodox Christians have not been that good at expressing the place of icons in the church, and once Empress Theodora took us out of the iconoclastic period.
Can you explain what that is for those that don't know?
So the iconoclastic period was the destruction of the icons. It was a time when icons were being abused and they were being worshipped, and the monastic community reacted against that, and so icons then were taken away, and so and certain emperors of that time, Byzantine emperors of that time, also supported this iconoclasm, which was the removal and the destruction of icons. Empress Theodora brings that back, 800s, 900s, but she brings it back under the guidance of writings that tell us what is the proper way. So number one, we do not worship icons, but we venerate the prototype that is projected in the image. So we're not even venerating the wood. We understand that it's just a piece of wood. Look at the back of this, right? It's just wood. But when we look at the icon image itself, it reminds us of the prototype that's there, that's being represented, and from that we want to emulate that characteristic or that ethic or that value that was represented within that icon. So really, sometimes they'll be expressed as a window, and it's a window into what our behavior as Christians should be modeled after. So that's proper veneration of the icon. All right.
Okay, and then the second part is, when can I call myself an Orthodox Christian?
All right. So, one is when you are able to, as Dr. Jeannie Constantina would put it, when you are able to think with an Orthodox mind, okay? And that process first involves knowledge, meaning that it involves a catechism to understand and appreciate what are the similarities between the different Christian expressions, but then what are the significant differences between Orthodoxy and Catholicism and Protestantism. But that's a mental exercise. So catechism is meant to just kind of get your reason involved. But reason is only part of it. Unfortunately, many times in Catholicism and Protestantism, it stops with rationality. But the second part of becoming an Orthodox Christian is the heart. And so the heart means to understand what it is to be able to think through the heart. And that means to be able, how do I want to put this? To be able to live an Orthodox Christian life. So that means a sacrificial life. That means a life dedicated to love. On Sunday's Gospel, you're going to hear, love thine enemies as you love your friends. So it's going to call us to do many things that are prized in an American or just an individualistic and pluralistic country. And so that's the second part, is to be able to shed that ego that we have and to humble ourselves before God and to be able to live in that life and that stillness so that we can hear and accept and do what is the will of God. So I'm being a little bit theoretical here, but you start with the mind, the catechism, but you'll end with the heart, and those two will then blend together.
Do you have to call yourself an Orthodox Christian, do you have to be baptized?
So, the formality of the process is, if you are baptized, then you will be chrismated into the Orthodox faith, and that will happen during the conduct of a divine liturgy. If you have not been baptized, then you will be baptized and you will be chrismated. So that's the formality of becoming an Orthodox Christian. But what is very, very important is to have the mind of an Orthodox Christian.
Okay, very good. Next one is a question for me.
Okay.
From
I'll take a break now.
Bender 440. And Bender 440 asks, what happens when a lost descendant shows up to the castle? The castle that was in my family for a long time, but it's also been gone a long time. So the first thing they do is they haul you to the police and they check up the tax records. And if your family from 400 years ago owes any taxes, you have to pay it.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
we should probably point out this is in reference to your family castle in Scotland.
Yes, in Scotland. Yeah. Yes. No, that's a joke. I don't know. Sometimes they give you a tour of the castle. Right now, it's been bought out by a private citizen and it's closed, so we can't get in there. However, although they did offer us a tour the last time.
Yeah, because we've been there a couple of times,
Yeah,
so they've
and they were going to arrange, but we said that's okay. We wanted to go to the trouble, but yeah, sometimes you get a tour of the grounds, and and that's pretty much it.
But you guys have to have a new a chieftain, right?
Yes, we are without a chief, but that's a long story, so I'll save that for another day. For Scotland Q&A. There we go. Yes. So next up is one of my glasses, FRMY, I believe it says. Yeah. Asks, where can I buy Greek American icons?
Well, there's a number of different sources, but the one that for me is where I get all my icons, and they do an excellent job. I'm looking them up right now. Well,
what is a Greek American icon? Does that mean made here in the States? Is that what they're looking for?
No. It just Well, what I'm thinking of is the Byzantine style, as opposed to the Russian style, the Ethiopian. Remember, we did that video on different styles of icons. So I'm thinking from a stylistic standpoint, they're referring to a Byzantine icon. So,
okay.
I think I have found it.
Just verifying it's the one.
I just want to make sure that I'm going to the right one here. It's that's what it is.
Looking it up live.
That's right.
What are you looking? The Saint Isaac.
That's what it is. Saint Isaac. Thank you.
Oh.
Saint Isaac, the ski.
What would we do without you?
No, I was reading the next question, so I wasn't really. I was half paying attention to what he was doing. So, yes. Also, Ancient Faith has some nice ones.
So we have Ancient Faith, and we have, which you can just search by Ancient Faith.
There it is. Okay,
it's Skeet. It's on the website for the Archdiocese.
It's skeet.com. Okay.
Skeet.
Skeet, Skete.
Okay.
It used to be called St. Isaac's Skeet Mycons, but they've changed their name to St. Paul's. That's what confused me.
Because St. Paul's now.
It's St. Paul's. So when it's St. Paul's, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know if this is the right one. But that is that's the best place that I know for a range of different icons. I mean, they've got quite a number of icons there, of not only of Jesus, of the Virgin Mary, of all of the saints, of the feast days, and then they have different expressions within each one of those categories. So skeet.com is definitely the place to go. That's where I get all my icons.
I need to find some copyright-free Jeopardy-style music whenever you start looking things up.
I have a little keyboard. I'll you know.
Hey, well, see? There we go. We'll put a timer on it.
All right. Okay. Next up is from Kneeling Catholic. And then trying to figure out how best to...
Yeah. Looked up your videos after watching My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. Apparently, because the actor Michael Constantine, who played the father, he passed away recently.
Right.
And in the film, they explained his absence. They passed away. They cremated the father, the character, without controversy in the film. And they're Greek Orthodox.
Oh yeah. So so this is the problem with movies. In the second movie, the premise centered around the fact that the priest hadn't signed the wedding document and they weren't married. This is not true at all. I mean, one, the document is signed by the bishop. It's not signed by the priest. Signs that he's performed the wedding, but the document is not signed by the priest. The document is signed by the bishop. And signature or not, the wedding service was performed. They are married. So that's just a silly thing. And then now I haven't seen number 3. I heard that it's.
No, I
haven't seen 2. I heard the same thing. It was.
Okay, yeah. But then somebody told me that the father was cremated, and I'm like, how did they get away with that in a Greek Orthodox movie?
Well, did they have a funeral in the movie? That's the thing. He can be cremated, but if they then had said that there was a funeral in the movie, then that would be a big contradiction. That would be untrue.
But I think what the listener, the viewer, what the viewer is saying is it came without controversy. I mean, as somebody in the family should said, "La pedimos ticani daughter."
Perhaps the writer did not realize that he became cremated.
Vardalos wrote it, so I mean.
Oh, she did. Oh, she did write that.
I'm pretty sure that she wrote all of it.
Oh, okay.
I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure. That's what she was known for.
At least make a statement that somebody shows that that's a controversial thing, but the family decide this is what they want to do. I mean, this is real life. This happens to us.
That would be an interesting plot point, if anything.
Right?
I'm guessing the reason was they wanted to include him in the movie. He died a few years ago, I believe. I don't think he just died. They can't have him in the movie, and so by saying he was cremated, they can pretend that the ashes are him and he's included in it. It's all Hollywood. It's all for the sake of art.
They show a scene of the gravestone like every other movie.
Well, let's write to her and ask her that. Maybe that'll be big bet waiting for.
I think it's a point well taken. There should have been introduced at least a little bit of controversy about that in the movie just to bring the point out.
Well, I'm actually grateful, and I'll tell you why. Because of that inconsistency, a lot of people have been watching our cremation videos.
Oh, okay. And saying, wait a minute.
So, thank you, Neo Vardal.
So apparently we are arranging a church outing to go see the movie. So then I'll be able to see for myself. So.
Well, you go have a good time, and you can tell me all about the movie.
All right. It's always good to see you in the group. So
yes. All right. So okay, moving on from I don't know how to say it. Jane Dykstra, maybe. Sorry
Jane.
if I got that wrong. I apologize. Why wait until people fall and get an abortion to help them? Why not help people not to decide to get themselves into severely difficult situations in the first place? Is this the
It
continuation?
continues, yeah.
I was taught by TV and movies, sleep around, it's fine, no one will judge you. If they do, they're evil. I gotta move this down. By the culture I was raised in, I was certainly not ever offered any hope in having a family of my own.
That's it.
Okay.
All right. I mean, I cannot argue with that. I mean, you're on point, and that's I think where we as the Christian faith, have fallen short of the mark. That we've missed the mark, so to speak, is that the woman has to feel comfortable enough to say, what are my options, right? To feel safe in an environment. I've had several women that have come to me in confession, and what do I do? And obviously my guidance, is no, don't have the abortion. But then I go on to say, what is it that we can do to help? If we're saying that you should have the child, then what can we do to help? But many times, we're behind the woman, and Presbyter Matthew Frederica Green did an excellent article on this, and I think it might be on my website. If not, I'll get it up there. She wrote an excellent article about that from her own personal experience in the 60s, where we talked about don't have an abortion, but then we don't offer any help. So the viewer is right on point there, that we need to be much, much better about providing services, whether that's a home, whether that's care, whether that's funding to help them to feed the child. And to get each woman so that she feels comfortable enough to come to us, to the church, and say, I need your help, and then us providing that help. And we have philopticos, we have many different outlets within our church that can offer that kind of help.
How do you deal with the second part about the culture, like what she was saying, like we'll stop by TV and movies, sleep around, it's fine, no one will judge you. If they do, they're evil. Or when it comes to that, or even other items, like I was just having a conversation with another youth director about the topic of marijuana. The way that society makes it seem now is if you're against smoking it, you're square. Or even drinking alcohol, you're square. You're goody two shoes if you don't have a drink or this or that. How do you deal with living a Christian life by Christian ethics when the culture is so judgmental?
Well, first off, let's not take that too closely. Don't judge. We judge all the time, and there's nothing wrong with judging. It's what Christ asks us to do is that remove the log from thine own eye before you judge. So there's nothing wrong with judging. We are allowed to speak against bad, immoral, unethical behavior. Yes, we do judge in that case. So, if a parishioner does something, okay, that is unethical, I as not only as a priest, but I as a Christian will say this behavior is inappropriate. That's a judgmental statement. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but I don't say, well, you've done that, you're a sinner, you're going to hell, and we don't love you anymore, go away. So we don't say that. What we say is this behavior is bad, and then we have to go on, and that's a big purpose of the show, explain why that behavior is bad. Okay, why that is not appropriate and acceptable behavior. So there has to be an education in love. So first off, we gotta get away from this idea that we cannot judge. We can judge, but we have to do it with mercy, compassion, and love. So that's kind of a starting point there. All right. Now, as far as what happens with society, this is where we can now judge, because we can say that as the anchor of truth, meaning that this is a constant, the Christian value is a constant, that's how now we can judge behavior that wanders off from that, because society is allowed to change behavior at will, and we see this today, right? We see all kinds of different behavior becoming now acceptable. The show that the news report that we just had today about all the looting that's going on in California now, right? Where this is almost becoming the norm of behavior. Now, people still realize that it's bad, but nobody really seems to be standing up to do anything about it, and it's happening. But we also have other behaviors that are happening in society, and society is saying, well, we have to be patient and understand. And the Christian answer to that is, no, we're allowed to judge that from the anchor of truth, which is Jesus Christ. So you want to add something to that?
No, I think that was a fine answer.
Oh, wow.
We have a super chat from Diane, who says there is a group called Save the Storks that will help young women who are pregnant. And as a follow up from Leslie Luzma, she says that Legacy Icons is one that she uses.
Legacy Icons? Oh, yeah, I've heard Legacy Icons is also, heard about that one.
Save the Storks is an interesting name for an organization. That sticks with you.
Yes, it does, right? I was just kind of, looking that up. But these are organizations that even if we can't do something personal of ourselves, we can at least support these. The Orthodox Church is not about bombing abortion clinics, so we're not going to fight violence with violence. But we are going to fight violence, and abortion is a violent act. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We have to fight it through information and love to show that woman that there is another way.
And Tommy Williams asks, is this live or a repeat? Well, it's a repeat.
What? Oh,
this episode.
Oh, this.
No, we're live, Tommy. We're back, my friend.
You hit the backward button, and now we'll go forward again.
Yes.
How'd you like that? That was pretty cool, right? The way I did that.
He practices in the mirror every night. You're unaware of it.
That's what I hear. Okay. All right. Next up is from Migs. It's a couple parts. I'm going to ask it a little bit at a time.
Okay.
It's be a lot for you to remember and answer. So Migs says, I've asked this in a way in the past, but in order to have a proper ecumenical council, we know we need Rome in the fold. But which of the Oriental churches have to be there? And how about the Church of the East?
Well, so we have to have the 5 patriarchates, right? Okay, so we have to have Antioch. We have to have, obviously, Constantinople. We have to have the Church of Alexandria, okay? And Alexandria can become problematic, right? Because there is, some of the Oriental churches are within that, okay? We have Rome, okay? And then we have Jerusalem. So that is the ecumenical council. The question today is going to be, what is the place of the Russian Patriarchate? Because that is the modern Patriarchate. So is Russia as a recognized Patriarchate and the OCA, but the OCA is, where do they fit in terms of an ecumenical council? But the underlying principle is the 5 patriarchates, all right? And so those would be the churches that are in communion with one another. Some of those Oriental churches are not necessarily in communion, or they're in a state of what's the word I'm looking at? Flux.
Okay, so churches with multiple patriarchs, or ones that have a patriarch in Orthodoxy and Eastern Catholic side too.
Well, okay, I don't think that would be so much problematic, because the Byzantine Catholic churches were Byzantine. I mean, they were Eastern Orthodox churches that fell under the protection of the Pope, and so they became Byzantine Catholic. So that would not be problematic because then if we had an ecumenical council, then right now they would be part of Rome. But once we were united, then they would be then an Orthodox church.
Okay. All right.
Now the final part.
What didn't I ask yet? What
So
did I miss?
would the Russian Orthodox Church expect to be one of the churches involved, but should there only be 5?
Well, I mean, again, the Holy Spirit will blow where it will, okay? And using the model of the fact that the Orthodox Church has not closed the canon of Scripture, I would say that the church would have to investigate now the fact that we have evolved. There is now a new patriarchate, and what role does that new patriarchate play? So one of the hallmarks of Christianity, at least within Orthodox and Catholic Christianity, is that we are open to the Holy Spirit's to the will of the will of the Father and the action of the Holy Spirit. So it can be that the new patriarch, it's not going to be a pentarchy anymore. It's going to be a hexarchy. Is that the 6, right? Hexarchy.
Maybe.
I'm going with that.
Math was not my
right. So there's no reason that we have to stay with 5. Because the church is always open to, what is the evolution of Christianity as we move forward, carefully and slowly, of course.
Okay. All right. Diane says, "Hi all, best wishes. Nice to see you, and hope all is well. I've learned there are Greek tarantulas firsthand."
There are Greek tarantulas.
Yeah, I guess apparently.
Are they
Who
a coffee
knew?
hour?
Huh? Wow, Greek. So I wonder how poisonous they are. I mean, baby tarantulas aren't really poisonous, right?
Well, they don't harm humans.
They don't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
I mean, I think their bite still hurts. Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty big spider. I mean, right? That's fangs gotta hurt, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there 2 kinds? Like ones in the movies are the non-poisonous kind? I thought.
I don't think any of the very large spiders are poisonous to humans.
That's what isn't it like the smaller the more deadly?
That's definitely true for the scorpion.
Yeah.
Well, the wolf spider is very, very small, and boy, that's pretty deadly. The black widow is very teeny, and she's very deadly, right?
The scariest one, I think, is the brown recluse.
Brown recluse.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's not the brown
Yeah.
the brown recluse.
It hides under furniture, and then if it bites you don't even feel it because it numbs the area.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
then over time, like within a day or so, it looks like you got shot by a gun.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, they're terrifying.
All right. What was the big spider movie with
Arachnophobia?
but it had William Shatner in it.
Oh, William Shatner? I have no idea.
I thought there was
yeah, there was. We'll come back to that later.
Okay. All right.
A big spider movie with William Shatner.
Yeah. I know what he's talking about. Yes.
I'm kind of happy I missed that one, honestly.
All right, we'll come back to that
All
at
right.
the end. So Diane also asks whether you have any opinions or thoughts about the Catholic Synod that's coming in October.
Ooh. I guess I got to do some research on that one. Catholic
I
Synod.
wonder where is that being held?
Huh.
All right. I'm not sure how to say. We have a name here.
Mr. Santos.
Mr. Santos. Congratulations for this awesome initiative. I am an Orthodox from Brazil, and each streaming I watch makes my faith stronger and my knowledge wider and deeper. God bless you all. Michael,
there we go.
Michael, thank you very, very much for that.
Yes. Wow.
And thank you, Brazil.
Yeah. Wow. Brazil. You. We met some people from Brazil with GM, right? They were really nice people.
So I'm just seeing here the theme of the 21 through 24 Synod in October sets the tone for how the church can discern ways to better fulfill its mandate to preach the good news of Jesus in every place and culture for the benefit of all God's people. Well, that sounds like all right. So, all right, I'll have to read up on that and see,
All right.
And one of these days, I'm going to make a map that we can bring in of all of our viewers in all the different places we've gone from Cameroon, Africa to
right.
to-
Okay.
That'd be
really-
a great
really should do
backdrop.
that.
Yeah, have that behind us. Okay, something to do. The Babbling Man says, "Thank you all so much for taking the time to answer my questions. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to learning more about the Orthodox faith. I love y'all's answers."
Well, thank you very much. And remember, a lot of times our answers are not necessarily there to make you happy, but to talk about what is the truth of Orthodoxy, right?
All right. Anonymous asks, "What is your take on the media practically ignoring the current situation with the Armenian Christians?" Yeah, I don't think I ever hear anything about the Armenian Christians.
I mean,
recently.
I mean, we know about the Armenian genocide, right? But of recent, so I guess another thing to
they're currently being kicked out of their homes. They're in refugee mode at the moment. It's I don't know all the details, but it's pretty bad and it's happening right now.
Wow. Who's kicking them out?
I'll provide more answers in a few moments.
Okay. Wow. Next up is Raphael. "I'll be attending the Orthodox Church in my town this Sunday after a long time. I've had a conversation with the priest about converting. I was raised with faith, but outside any form of church, Orthodoxy is pretty much all I know when it comes to Christianity."
I mean, when you grow up, when you grow up in a single church, that's what happens. I mean, that's all I ever knew. So going with you to the Baptist church was bizarre. And then you come in. Well, because it didn't have what I was expecting, right? And then when you came to the Orthodox church, we were kind of bizarre, right? Because you're like, the sermon is like 5 minutes. What kind of sermon is that, right? Because in a Baptist, you got to. There was a whole educational process there, right? The hymn and the singing is different. So I was just as kind of nervous about going to a Baptist service as you were. I don't want to say nervous, but little apprehensive about going to a Orthodox service.
And speaking of apprehensive, I was apprehensive to just quote off the top of my head what was happening here, but but I was on the right track. It's happening in Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Thank you. I was also apprehensive about my pronunciation. Well, apparently they're being kicked out of Artsakh. Can you pronounce that one?
Nope. That's
as at the moment by the Azerbaijani armed forces, about 40,000 of them.
So now they're being kicked out by the Muslims or by the
specifically it says Azerbaijani armed forces and the Turks, but I don't know. I'm not seeing too much information about the Turks.
Okay, but typically speaking, Turkish is Muslim.
Yes.
For the most part. So this sounds like it might be another conflict between the Christians and the Muslims. And again, that always happens. That always happens in a bad way when both are fundamentalist, right? If you look at Israel, Israel, for many years, the Jews and the Muslims were neighbors and getting along and everything was fine. It's when fundamentalists meet that we have the issues. So it's not. What was the one show that they had? I think Oprah sponsored it. Peace, Love, and it was the three women from the different faiths. One was Muslim, one was Christian, the other one I think was Jewish, and it was like
Was it a movie?
Yeah,
Like
maybe it was
Eat, Pray, Love?
Eat, Pray, Love. I think it was Eat, Pray, Love. Right. And they were talking about how they all, lived in relative harmony, but it's when all of a sudden, fundamentalist ideas came that the difficulty started coming. So,
well, nevertheless, if this is, and I'm reading some other reports saying 100,000, but that's the problem. I'm not finding it in any major news outlets. So here's, going back to the root of the question, we're talking about the media ignoring that. What is our take on that? I mean, as Christians, I know we're Orthodox, but shouldn't this be something that we're immediately aware of? That it should be,
It certainly should be, and I got to say, I'm guilty of that, because typically for me, the news is the evening report with Lester Holt. I mean, that's my news source, but that's a very biased source because it only picks those particular things that they feel are of interest to them, right? So we should have, and we notice this more when we go to Europe or when we go to the UK. When we watch news programs there, like Sky News, it's much more broad in perspective, and so we get a much better idea of what's happening in the world. So, part of it is a bit of laziness on my part that I don't investigate and find the news channels that talk a little bit more about a broader perspective of what's happening.
Well, trust is a big issue, I guess. Right now, it seems, without going into details, but it seems like, depending on the news channel you watch, you get a completely different story. Even if it's the same story, you get a completely different narrative. I mean, people live in completely different realities.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I mean, at least for America, that would be the difference. Let's say between the Good Morning America and Fox News, right? I mean, you're going to see two very, very different applications of possibly the same story. So,
yeah.
In fact, they have to be a reporter doing your own research into everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is a good, not to take too much time, but so what is a good, independent news source? I mean, like I said, I mentioned Sky News, Deutsche Welle. There's an American version of Deutsche Welle, which is obviously the German one, and they do, I think, an overall good job with the world news. But
I personally listen to. See, I'm not the right person to ask, because I'll tell you why. Because I listen to everything. I want to hear. I'm a big believer that if you hear the two, between the two different extremes, in the middle you're going to find something closer to the truth. So if I listen to a lot of independent news and a lot of independent reporters with good track records. But you'll find, in my feed, you'll find everybody from. I hesitate to say a name, because nowadays it's so anybody that you name drop, whether they be on the left or the right or the middle,
right,
is going to get you on the receiving end of a lot of hatred. But I try to diversify my news sources to try to get different perspectives.
Okay,
I think that's probably the best way that you can do so.
So I'd be curious to see our viewers kind of what news do they watch that kind of keeps them up. So, all right, what do we got next?
All right, the Babbling Man has another question. What is it like in the daily life of an Orthodox Christian? What does their day start off like? What do they do throughout the day, etc.? Thank you and God bless.
So, there are some general guidelines that I could apply. I should say guidelines, but some general observations I can apply. But, some of it is culturally based too. Whether you're Russian Orthodox, whether you're Greek Orthodox, whether you're Arab Orthodox. So, different things. But some of the more general things that you'll find in common is that the day should begin with some type of thankful prayer, meaning, Lord God, thank you that I have risen this day so that I can live one more day, and to and guide me that I may glorify your name through my actions. The other thing you'll find is that typically in an Orthodox day, there'll be an icon that's somewhere near the door. So they'll either reverence that icon or they'll kiss that icon before they leave to go to work. In terms of the day, it's pretty typical. You may in the office. As we heard at the clergy lady, because this is one of the discussions that came up about what is it like to be Orthodox in the world, she mentioned that in her cubicle she has icons up, not to show off, but just that these are icons that are important and special to her, and she likes to see them throughout the day to kind of remind her. All right. Normally sometime during the week, a lot of Orthodox Christians will, and I see that happening here at the church many, many times, people will just randomly stop by and they'll light a candle in church to say a prayer for a loved one, somebody that's sick, somebody that's passed away. So the church becomes a place for them to come, sometimes just to sit down, because they'll say, Father, can I just sit in the church for a little while? Absolutely, go ahead. Can I light a candle? They'll come, they'll ask a question. So typical Orthodox life, God is never far away. So he's always part of the thinking process. So, and that's part of what we talk about, or that's part of the way we express ourselves when we hear the words of St. Paul that says, pray unceasingly, meaning that we are constantly having a conversation with God. So those are some of the generalities, I would say. Prayers at meals, saying some type of prayer at meal, but Catholics and Protestants do that too. So that's not typically Orthodox. But what makes us distinct, together with the Catholics, would be the actual making of the sign of the cross, which is a very, very, very Orthodox thing to do. Passing by a church, passing by a cemetery sometimes, entering the church, leaving the church, an accident, an ambulance goes by, things like that. So did I...
Well, there's different prayers for different times of the day. There's prayers for, there's the hours. What they start at 3 in the morning,
right?
So it's prayers throughout the day. You've got the what is it called, Koboskini?
Oh yes, that's right. So that'll typically a lot of times identify an Orthodox Christian is the knotted rope or the Koboskini. So you'll see this many times identifying a person as an Orthodox Christian, and again reminding them of God. That each little knot represents then the saying of the Jesus prayer.
Well, and the knots are there, so you don't even have to look. You feel the bracelet, and each you say the Jesus prayer with each little knot that's in there.
Right.
You can go around the entire bracelet. So
yeah.
That's
so
when,
and usually there'll be like 100 knots, I think, right?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
But does the typical Orthodox really get up at 3 a.m. to do the prayers?
No, that is not typical Orthodox.
But if you wake up in the middle of the night, you're worried about something's on your mind, you can say the prayer then.
Mm-hmm.
What about as far as community? Like, what is the expectation of an Orthodox for community participation, giving, charity, etc.?
Well, number one, an Orthodox Christian never operates by him or herself. So they always view themselves as part of a community. So they never think of themselves as individualistic. They're always, and again, sometimes this can come off strange to an outsider because it seems like we are prying or that we are involving ourselves too much. But it's what we enjoy doing is being part of that extended family. So we want to know about, when is your new child due? How is that new house coming along? Did you get your car fixed? How did your father's kidney operation go? Is everything going okay? You weren't smiling. So we're always thinking of each other in terms of a community. And so we're typically not isolated. So not only are we thinking that God is active and present in our life, but so is other Orthodox Christians, or just, other people who are our friends, and we're known by that communion.
Well, and then kind of along those lines, that if you're new to Orthodoxy, I can only speak from the Greek Orthodox. I don't know about Romanian or Russian or any others, but we tend, and I'm guilty of this as well, so I'm not criticizing. If I am, I'm criticizing myself. We tend to sit with the people that we know at coffee hour. And we don't mean to be excluding anybody, but you see your friends, you get together, you have a conversation, you're oblivious to everything else around you, which the newcomer can sometimes be left standing alone, and they think no one is friendly, and it's not what it's, they're not intending to be unfriendly. It's just we're so busy with the people that we know. So you kind of have to be outgoing to make it. You have to
almost pushy.
You have to go up to tables and you have to introduce yourself. And once you do that, they're always welcome to have you. Sit with them. But that's just kind of a caution of, don't get disheartened if it happens, because it's happened to all of us, you and me as well.
And the best piece of advice I have for that is just when you see the priest, you're walking to coffee hour, or if you don't see the priest, say, hey, I'd like to be introduced to the community. Is there a table that I can sit at? Because that's what I do. Is if I walk in coffee hour, that's part of what I see my responsibility, obligation, whatever you want to call it, is that if I see somebody new that's sitting by themselves, which is natural, then I'll grab them by the hand, and I'll kind of know the table that I can go to that will say, hey, come on and sit down. So I'll say, hey, come on, and I'll take them by the hand and I'll lead them to the table. So I'm saying priests like to do that. So if you are new, do that. Just call the priest aside after he's given away the andidero, the bread at the end, and say, hey, I'd like to sit at coffee hour, but I'm a little nervous. And the priest will say, come on with me, I'll take you in, and he'll seat you at a place that he already knows the people and how they'll react to you.
I think that a lot of people are intimidated against doing that because they feel like the priest is a busy man. Everybody wants to talk to the priest. Usually there's a big line to talk to the priest, and it's awkward standing there by yourself waiting. What is your response to them?
My response is that's a bunch of malarkey. Okay, yeah, I mean, my mom said that a lot too. The priest is busy. The priest is busy. And we have that idea that the priest is busy. But this is what the priest does. Is brings people into the body of Christ. That's one of his main goals. Okay, liturgy is good, and administrative is good, and those other things are great. But bringing the community together and introducing new people to the community, that's kind of a prime mover for what he does. So never think of it as, well, the priest is too busy to talk to me. Any priest that tells you that should not be saying that at all. I'm too busy. I mean, obviously you have to know when to talk, but a really good time to talk to the priest is after he's finished andidero. Okay, just before, catch him kind of before he goes to finish communion, and just say to him, hey, I'd like to be introduced to a couple of people. And he may say, you know what, let me finish with communion, and then I'll see you, and then I'll introduce you to a couple of people. So normally speaking, a priest will want to do that. So don't get caught up in that whole, the priest is too busy.
All right. Aaron says, hey, everyone. From your perspective, what would it take to revive an inclination to faith or religion here in the U.S.?
Well, the one thing that always tends to revive it is some kind of tragedy, right? COVID of recent memory, right, brought, when we started closing the churches, all of a sudden people are like, you can't close my church, I'm going to church. 9/11, right, that brought a lot of people. So usually tragedy, whether it's on a grand scale or whether it's on a personal scale, usually that will bring people to church. At least for a little while. The problem is it's not long lasting. It's not a permanent fix. But what it does is it gives the priest and the community an opportunity to say, hey, we've missed you. We haven't seen you for a while. Come back. Join us. We're fun. This is where you belong. So that's where the permanency can take hold. So everybody goes through some tragedy. All right, whether it's a grand scale tragedy like a 9/11 or a COVID, or whether it's a small scale tragedy like they've lost a loved one, whether it's a parent or a sibling or something like that. Okay, and at that moment they're looking for an explanation. Why did this happen? And since society and science can't provide an answer, it's only the church that can provide even the beginnings of an answer. And so people will normally gravitate. Most of the people 99% of the people that I get to return to church, I meet at funerals. Not from weddings and not from baptisms, but from funerals, because that's when they're quiet and they want to ask these questions.
All right. Pet Rock Concert says, "Hi, Father."
Pet Rock Concert. All right.
It's been a while because I believe Pet Rock Concert's been on the show before.
Yeah, I think we remember that name, right?
That.
Yes. Love the weekly show. I recently watched your video on hell, and in it you distinguished the Orthodox Church from the Church. Can you expand on what you meant? Did I misunderstand?
Well, I'm trying to think of the video that I did. It's based off of the article that I wrote that is on the resources page of our website. So what I wanted to say there is that hell is not a constant in Orthodoxy as it is, let's say, in Protestantism, or at least in let's say, evangelical Protestantism, where hell is only fire and brimstone and a source of never-ending pain. For the Orthodox, it's been one of four things. Some of those, have been declared heretical, like some of Origen's teachings. All right, but some of them have been recognized even by some of the great saints of our church, like Saint Basil. So hell. One of the ideas of hell is the classical interpretation of the river of fire,
The lake of fire.
the lake of fire. Okay, the classic one. But another one is non-existence, that you cease to exist at all. So you are non-existent. The other one, and this is why Origen was declared a heretic, is that there is no hell and there is purgatory, and all will be redeemed through the fire of purification. So everybody will be saved. And then we have just an abandonment from God. Separation from, that's better. And remember, God does not separate himself from us. We separate ourselves from him. And the hatred that we would display is shown as a separation from God. So that instead of, and the example that the Holy Fathers use is one of fire, so that instead of the warmth of the fire where we feel comforted, those that hate God see his presence as fire that burns. And so God's nature has not changed, but our nature has changed. So what I meant to say in that is that there's no one vision of what hell is within Orthodoxy.
One could say if we separate ourselves from God now, we're going through a type of hell.
Could say that. Could say yes. Yeah. Because that is our Gethsemane. Oh Lord, why have you, take this cup from me? And the words at the cross, why have you forsaken me, right? So we have those two images that Jesus Christ has given us that tells us of his humanity, right? Take this cup from me. He shed tears of blood. And on the cross, Eli, Eli, sabachthani, O Lord, why have you forsaken me? And this is our cry when we turn away from God.
we've had a few viewers make recommendations for new sites.
Oh, okay.
Instead of going through all of them, I would point out that out of the few recommendations, somebody mentioned Glenn Greenwald. Excellent recommendation. And this one has its own special comment from Pet Rock Concert, and of course the Jimmy Dore Show. I will say this about Jimmy Dore. The thing that's really interesting about him is he's very principled. He will sit down and speak even with those people that he disagrees with. And I find those to be the most stimulating conversations.
Okay.
Because nowadays, I think that's one of the issues. We tend to stay in our own tribes. We tend to stay in
Yes.
our own echo chamber. And that's one of the reasons that we're as divisive as we are. So that
What was the two then you said? Because now I've got.
there's a whole list.
Oh, okay.
But, Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore are two that I definitely would recommend. Out of these,
Okay.
it's kind of funny now that when you actually say like who you, and like I said, that's why I diversify who I follow, because I want to hear from as many voices as possible. But now I can even sense there's a hesitancy among many people, like revealing the news that you watch is a hush hush kind of thing.
Oh, right.
It's a strange time.
Yeah. I was just going to go back to the video about help. Maybe we should watch it again and see what they meant by between distinguishing the church from the Orthodox.
So yeah, what is there a concept of the church, quote unquote, as a whole, and the Orthodox Church as within Orthodoxy, or do we view Orthodoxy as the church? Because we talk about reunification all the time. Would that be considered the church?
Yes, right. So when we talk about the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, we are talking about now the reunification of the Pentarchy, which could be the Exarchy now. All right. So that's what we call the church. Okay. Now, Orthodoxy, obviously, within Orthodoxy, which is the Church of the East, we will call ourselves the church. All right. But we still believe that again. Mainstream Orthodoxy still believes that, as Pope John Paul said, that we are two churches, two lungs. Wait a minute.
Two churches, two lungs.
Oh, good grief! I just had in my head one church breathing with two lungs. Okay. That's what it is. One church breathing with two lungs. So the church is the universal church. It's what Jesus Christ established. And what we have now is not the universal church.
Your body being the temple of the Holy Spirit, as applied to the church. That's interesting.
You mean an individual body?
I'm just saying that it's funny that we have that saying, your body being the temple.
Right.
And now when we're describing the church, we're using the body as the metaphor.
Oh, yes, yeah. I see. Right, yes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But it's his body, not ours.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to jump down for one question, then I'll come back up. But we have not had a question yet from Joe Jones. And Joe asks, can souls in hell be helped by prayers?
Absolutely. So at least we have many of the monks that have written about this particular topic, and this is why the memorial service is so important in the Orthodox faith. It's not just for the memory of it's not just to remind us, but these are fervent prayers that they be accepted back into the Orthodox faith. Okay? That they be accepted back into the body of Christ. Sorry about that. They be accepted back into the body of Christ. So in that sense, we do believe that our prayers, I love this word, efficacious. They're not a guarantee, but we have confidence in what in the dialogue between Abraham and God at Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, and that God could be moved in his mercy. We feel that those prayers could do that. The only guarantee that we have is a life in Christ. But we do have examples from the monks that speak about their, and I'm remembering one case in particular where the spiritual father was very mean to his spiritual children. And so he died, and he asked that the monks pray for him so that he could be released from his torment, and that through the prayers of the brotherhood, then he was released.
So, are there souls in hell now?
Well, so, we do believe that during the 9-day period, the soul is receiving its foretaste of both kingdom of heaven and of hell. So,
because I didn't know, I thought hell was
after
what
the
was
final
decided
judgment,
after the final judgment.
as a final judgment.
In the meantime, I don't know where we are, whether we're asleep and we're in neither place, or whether we're somewhere. I didn't know that anybody, because even Satan isn't in hell, right? He's in this world.
He's in this world. So that's kind of a confusing topic. But the stories that the monks relate are where they are in turmoil. So they don't necessarily they say that they're in hell, but that they're in turmoil.
Okay. All right. So I think that's it for below for new people. So I'm going to pop back up again. And Aaron has a second question, kind of tied to the first question. What can we do, or what should we change to reach out to the newer generation to keep them strong in their Orthodox faith? It seems like many are leaving.
Well, and I think we've talked a little bit about this before. And historically, and I don't want to just say this about Orthodoxy, but I think it also certainly happens in Catholicism. And talking to some of my Catholic priest friends, there's that time that people kind of disappear from the church, right? So you grow up in the church, right? And you're a kid, and then you're a teen, and then you graduate high school and you go off to college. And so you're single, and during that time you kind of fall away. I mean, that just seemed, it happened with me, and it happened to a lot of friends that I know, and it happens to a lot of people. But then they get married, and then they have kids, or like us, they don't have kids, but they recognize that there's something missing. And that's when they kind of slowly return to church. What the problem is that many times they're not in their hometown, so they can't just return to their hometown church. So the question is, where do I return to? And we've both experienced going to a church that's not necessarily friendly, right? So we try to make that return trip. And I'm very, very optimistic about that most people want to return back to the church, but they find it difficult because they're not in their hometown, and the church that they go to is not necessarily welcoming, or the priest is too fundamental, or I'm trying to think.
Any number of reasons.
Any number of reasons,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Or life, they're so busy that, a lot of people say Sunday's the only day I have to sleep in, whatever, and they...
That's true when you're in college and so forth.
Yeah.
My wife did a doctorate. She was pulling 14-hour days. Sunday's like the one day. She did go to church. She managed somehow, but
and that's what I'm saying. At some point, usually in their 30s or so, they recognize that there's something missing. That spark is calling them back, but they have a difficulty in figuring out which church to return to. And if they don't find a church, then they tire of the journey, and then they just call it quits and they say, you know what? But then, it's, God's grace is wonderful because, just like you, right? I mean, you found our church here. The people were very welcoming, and then you kind of returned to the church. So,
Kind of.
Well, not kind of. Well, you are.
Yeah,
You're a lot.
I got wrapped up, and happily so.
He goes to church as much as I do. So
literally,
yes, all right.
Sometimes more, I feel. But but once again, I'm not gonna lie, because I had the same, well, for me, we moved around a lot as a child,
Right.
so it took many tries to find an Orthodox church where I felt welcome. I mean, there were definitely a lot of other, where I'm not going to name, where I did not feel welcome, even despite the fact that my name is as Greek as you can possibly get. I was still made to feel like an outsider, and especially when you have family members that have died, and you feel like the church is pushing you away instead of embracing your pain. That can be very very difficult to contend with. So when somebody does go through that, when somebody's been, let's take it to an extreme level, when somebody feels like they've been burned, what do they do?
Well, they walk away, right?
Yeah, but how do you bring them back?
Well, so yes, and you can only do that through patience and love. I mean, by just kind of waiting them out and just say, just I'm here. Sometimes you may not even see the fruit of your labor, right? Is that they may come back under another priest, but you were just kind of there. One of the things that side note that I want to bring up here is something that I heard at the clergy laity, and that is a bit distressing for an interesting reason. Many of the priests, and I don't doubt them, because we've seen some of that here, many of the priests were talking about this flood of catechumens that they're having, of people that want to convert to the Orthodox faith. So they're talking about, I've got 20 last year, and I had 15, and we had a couple ourselves too here, and we spend a lot of time talking about the converts that are returning to the church. But one of the things that we're missing, and Demos, you kind of led me to this, one of the things that we're missing is where we become so busy chasing now the converts, we've forgotten the sheep of our own flock. And there are many who don't want to leave the Orthodox faith, but they've stopped going to church. And we have to spend an equal amount of time bringing them back as much as we do hosting new converts. It's great to have new converts, but there's a whole plethora, that's the other word I like, there's a whole plethora of, do you even know what the plethora is? You know that movie?
Oh, Three Amigos. Come on, man.
Okay. I'm not smart like you. But
you killed the invisible swordsman.
So there's a whole group of people here that we're missing, and we have to make sure that we reach out to them, to the lost tribe. And this is, I think, what's coming out here. So I'm very optimistic about the young people returning to church. I have no doubt about that. I've seen that, but our focus is getting a little unbalanced, and we need to remember about those people, like myself, who drifted away from Orthodoxy, but then through people that we've met, were called back to it.
I find hope also to a degree in the digital frontier. I know that the importance is that they come to the church and they become part of the community, but I think that this the digital landscape gives people a good idea and something to call them back.
Yeah, I do think that this platform is one of those avenues open to them.
We have a super chat from Migs, and Migs says, "It seems like on a big scale, teens leave. I have been to Mass and Divine Liturgy, and it's majorly middle-aged and older folk. Seldom do I see young kids or young adults. It's tough to see. I wish it wasn't so hard to bring them back."
And it continues, I think.
Oh, is that what the down arrow means?
No, I'll continue. Some feel judged, and unfortunately, some are very modern thinking and don't believe everything the world approves that the church rejects.
One more time. The last part. One more time.
And believe everything the world approves that the church rejects.
Okay, all right. And that's why the church is so important as an anchor. I mean, it is not it is not wrong to say that there is an absolute truth. Okay? That is a core value of Christianity, not just of Orthodoxy, but of Christianity. There is an unchanging truth. But nowadays, you have this silly saying of, well, that's my truth.
Hashtag.
Oh, hashtag
my truth.
My truth.
I hate that.
That's the stupidest thing ever, okay? Because there is a truth, not my truth or
the sky is green. Hashtag my truth.
Right, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that's what's important about Christianity, is that there is a truth, and that truth helps guide us in all of this societal wave that has been here since the 20s, for Pete's sake.
And Diane has a super chat. She says, Ted says, the Holy Cross Seminary is seeing record numbers of seminarians' applications. Record numbers.
Yes, in fact, Holy Cross just said, and I remember I was talking to you about that they've had the highest enrollment in Hellenic College in their history, and that in Holy Cross they're returning to high numbers. So yes, I saw that report from Holy Cross. So Ted's right on.
And Diane actually goes on to say that the closest church to her is an hour away, and the people are very quote unquote fashion oriented.
Oh, well.
She is uncomfortable with a young woman wearing a $4,000 dress that is shorter than a pair of shorts with tiny straps.
Ooh.
I would refer them to our guide about how to dress in church.
Yes.
You know,
Etiquette, our church etiquette video.
Yeah.
that is probably the nuclear device of priesthood.
Yeah.
Is to figure out how to tell a woman she can't wear that particular outfit. That is the nuclear bomb of.
If the priest shows up wearing a muscle shirt, that might convince her not to.
Oh yeah, right.
Fight fire with fire.
Right. That's right.
And did you see Migs says, thank you to you, Demos. But grammar is not my friend.
No worries. The purpose of language is just getting your message across. No worries.
Let's see. I skipped down. I got to find my place. I think Costa V. Was that the next one, Demos? I think.
Well, we had another one from Babbling Man, which should be a very quick answer, and because we're getting low on time. Who asks, could I venerate from home? At the moment, I can't get to the Orthodox Church closest to me.
Yes, you can, but go to skeet.com or to Legacy. Order yourself a beautiful icon and have something that you can venerate of your own.
And once again, because I'm very concerned that if the misspelling of that might lead them to a bad site, it's skete.com.
Right.
All right. And then Costa.
All right. Now to Costa. We don't want to skip him. Is it mandatory for a priest to give a sermon during the Divine Liturgy, or is it only encouraged or a tradition?
Yes, it's not mandatory. It's highly encouraged, but it's not mandatory. And I mean, for example, I will always give a sermon on Sunday. I'll say something. I think it's important for the people to hear something. But like a liturgy during the week or something like that, I may just celebrate liturgy, but not necessarily give a sermon. There are other priests who every time that they're serving anything, Vespers, Matins, liturgy, whatever, they're given a sermon. Okay, So no, there's no requirement to give a sermon, but we want to imitate Christ as much as possible. And when we look in Scripture, what we see is that he reads from the Torah and then he teaches. So that's the model that we use.
If you end up with very few, let's just say that you do a Wednesday night service and you get one or two people, would you rather talk to them directly after the service, or
usually
than a sermon?
Yeah, usually that's what we'll do is typically after most services we'll go in and we'll have a small little coffee hour afterwards, and that's kind of where we'll sit down, because a lot of times it is only 3-4 people, and we'll all sit down and have a conversation. Then they'll ask me some questions about the feast, and then we'll talk about it there. So my sermon kind of happens at that point.
Well, I would say a lot of times it's only 3. You get good numbers. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's
I'm
3.
just thinking like worst case scenario. During COVID, that was the case. Like we would have fewer people, but now.
No, but I mean, like the Patriarchs that we had last night. We didn't even have a lot of people.
Weekday services.
Weekday services, yes. Yeah.
All right, I think we have one more from Chemo Buddies. How does the Orthodox Church view medical abortions? Mother did not start with the intent to have an abortion, but because of risk to mother or medical issue with the child or any other thing, they are now having a medical abortion.
So again, and this is where we believe that we have a different, somewhat. Let me put it this way: this is where you can see the Orthodox Church not having the scholasticism of the Catholic Church, because like there are, and I don't think not in the areas of abortion, but many times. A scholastic idea is what are it's situational ethics, like just war. What are the principles that would make up for us to go to war, and what would be those extenuating circumstances for X? The Orthodox Church does not have that. So just like we don't have a doctrine of just war, meaning that war is never the answer, abortion is never the answer. But through economia, we understand that each person has their own will, and that is what God gave to them. And the church can instruct, the church can plead, the church can teach, but at the end, the person has to exercise their will. And once they make that decision, then the church can say, this was not the appropriate choice, but you are still in the body of Christ, and we still love you, and we still want to help you to understand why that wasn't the right decision to make, but because of your circumstances, we understand why you did it. So, but we never create situational ethics to say that in this case it's okay, in this case it's not. It's always bad, whether it's war or whether it's abortion or whether it's
just fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. Right. Yes.
Yes.
And that keeps us out of trouble because we can say clearly this is never the right answer, but economia is always part of the church's mercy.
So 2 things real quick, just to wrap up the evening. Diane says there are no sermons in the monastery in Greece, but there is a sermon in parables at coffee hour after lunch.
And to yes, and to add to Diane's point, in Greece and in the ancient church, there was the title of hierokyrix. Hierokyrix was the traveling sermon priest. Not all priests were educated, and so they weren't capable of giving a sermon. So there was a traveling priest who was trained, and when he would come around to the village, he would give the sermon. So that's partly why we don't have sermons in a lot of villages, because the priests weren't trained. So this hierokyrix would be the one that would come in and do that. But there is typically, as Diane said, a lot of times in the monastery, there'll be a reader there that will read from Scripture, or they'll read from the canons of the Holy Fathers and educate the people that way.
And number 2, I'm going to ask a very selfish question. I'm going to ask a question. What kind of coffee did you make, Presbytera? Because it smells fantastic.
Oh, Almond Joy.
What?
Almond Joy.
Almond Joy coffee?
J-O-I.
Oh, really?
From down the street, Canal Town.
Canal Town?
Yeah, they have the best coffee.
Best coffee.
The best coffee.
Oh, because it smells fantastic.
Oh, it's good. I'll bring you some next time.
Yeah.
If anybody lives in the Rochester area, I highly recommend, and we're not being paid by them, I'm just saying they are.
Canal Town
Peter is a co-owner, right? Co-owner.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he's a great guy, and their coffee is just outstanding.
I know I sound like a 1980s Folgers cup commercial. That's a great cup of coffee, but it just
I'll bring you some. It really is. I highly recommend you go there. It's like 2 minutes down the road.
Yeah. All right.
So again, thanks everybody for joining us on the show. It was another great adventure. We're glad to be back again.
No, I think it's been about a month for me because we were gone and Sam did one of the shows. So
right.
Yeah.
So okay, so welcome back. You're all enlivened now, right?
Well, kind of. The coffee helped.
So,
She's here to hold you accountable.
yes, that is a big part of what she
And
does.
then 3 weeks, we'll have our 150th show. We're going to have that special giveaway. We've been promising for a while, but then, circumstances cause us to miss 2 weeks.
That would be a good, we can have the reveal.
No. Our goal was the night that we raised $1,000. I'm going to do that.
Oh, how much have we raised so far?
Today? Oh, not near. But
right.
Now it's too late to ask.
So Demos thinks he's worth $1,000.
No, we'll have to do it with some. We'll have to coincide that with some charity, some fundraising.
Oh, yeah.
We'll think of it. But we are going to be doing the AFSP suicide walk, not this Saturday, but next Saturday here in Rochester. So if you're here and you'd like to participate, join the Annunciation Greek Orthodox team. It's on the website. We highly recommend it. It'll be a walk. It'll be a lot of fun, and I think
Great cause.
We just started rolling in donations, and we've already raised $250.
And the weather's beautiful this time of year. It's a great weather for walking.
Yeah, there's an email that's coming out tomorrow that'll give you some more details. And we're attempting to raise $500. I think their goal is $185,000. So
tell you what. Next week, all the money that we'll raise will go towards that.
Towards the walk.
So
okay, sounds good.
Make sure you tune in next week, and we'll be holding that small fundraiser.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot, Presbytera. Thank you very much, Demos. Welcome back, and we will see you all next week.
Good night.
Good night.